Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever wondered how we got here? I mean, really, how? In a universe that seems to swing between perfect, unbending laws and just total chaos, how does something as intricate and orderly as life even happen? Well, it all starts in a place you'd never expect.
Okay, let's start with a little thought experiment. It all kicks off with this tiny, what seems like a totally insignificant error. A single clock, just a couple minutes late. So, because of that clock, a man wakes up late. He's rushing, right? He leaves his house just 5 minutes later than he normally would. And he steps out into the street at the exact tragic wrong moment. A car with bad brakes hits him, and he dies. And that man is Albert Einstein. So in this alternate timeline, his game-changing papers never published. Modern physics as we know it just doesn't happen. And the device you're watching this on right now, it's never even invented.
That dramatic chain reaction is a perfect example of what we call the butterfly effect. It's a key part of chaos theory, this idea that one tiny, tiny change can ripple outwards and change, well, everything.
You see, for hundreds of years, we kind of saw the universe as this perfect machine, a clockwork universe, right? Thanks to Newton, we thought if we just knew where everything was and how fast it was going, we could predict the future with perfect accuracy. But then chaos theory comes along and just shatters that whole idea. It showed us that nope, the universe is way more sensitive and way more unpredictable than we ever dreamed.
And this whole idea got this amazing name, the butterfly effect. You know, the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil setting off a tornado in Texas. And the crazy thing is, it wasn't discovered through some grand experiment. It was found completely by accident back in 1961 by a meteorologist named Edward Lorenz. So, Lorenz is running this computer simulation, trying to predict the weather. And to save a little time, he decides, hey, I'll just restart the sequence from the middle. So he looks at his printout and he manually types in the number he sees for one of the starting conditions, 0.506. But here's the thing. What Lorenz didn't realize was that the computer was holding a much more precise number in its memory. The difference he made by rounding it off was almost nothing. I mean, think of it like taking a single speck of dust off the Eiffel Tower. It should have made zero difference, right? Well, it turns out it made all the difference in the world. At first, the new simulation looked just like the old one, but then it started to drift. And then it went completely off the rails, creating a totally different weather forecast. Lorenz had stumbled onto this huge discovery. A tiny, almost unmeasurable change at the start could lead to a massive, completely different outcome down the road. Okay, so the universe is super sensitive to how things start. But the plot thickens, because there's this other, really fundamental law of physics that seems to say that nothing complex should ever be created. At all. The physicist Sean Carroll says when you learn about it, it can be a little depressing. And honestly, he's got a point. We're talking about the second law of thermodynamics, the law of increasing entropy. It's this rule that says everything in the universe, literally everything, is always moving from a state of order to disorder. You know, cream mixing into coffee until it's just one color, stars burning out. Things just wind down.
Yeah, entropy is just a fancy word for disorder or randomness. And this second law says that the total amount of disorder in a closed system, like our universe, can only go up. It can never go down. This all points to this really bleak idea called the heat death of the universe. This future state where everything is just maximum chaos and, well, nothing interesting can happen anymore. So, this brings us to a huge, glaring paradox. If the universe's one-way street is towards disorder and decay, this boring, messy soup, then how did we happen? How did something as beautifully organized and complex as a living thing, as you, ever come to exist in the first place? Okay, so the solution to this puzzle is realizing that we've been mixing up two totally different ideas. We need to untangle them to see how life actually cleverly uses that march towards disorder for its own purposes. So here's the key. Think of it on two different axes. The first axis is order versus disorder. That's the one entropy rules. It's the one-way slide from neat to messy. But there's a second axis, simple versus complex. And here's the crucial part. The second law of thermodynamics says nothing about whether things can get more complex along the way.
And that is the secret of life. Life doesn't break the second law of thermodynamics. It's a product of it. We are essentially entropy engines. Think about it. We take in highly ordered, low-entropy stuff, like food or sunlight. We use that energy to build and maintain our own complex internal order. But to do that, we have to expel a bunch of disordered, high-entropy waste, like heat, back out into the universe. So we create this little local pocket of order for ourselves, but we only do it by making the universe as a whole even more disorderly. It's a trade-off.
Now, exactly how this whole process got started, that's still a huge debate among scientists. It's a classic chicken and egg problem. What came first? The blueprint, the genetic code like DNA that tells a cell what to do, or the engine, the metabolism, the process that actually harnesses energy to build things? You can't have one without the other, so which one started it on?
All right, so let's recap. The universe isn't random. It's just really, really sensitive. And life isn't some miracle that breaks the laws of physics. It's a clever system that uses those laws. And understanding this stuff isn't just for philosophers. It has some seriously powerful real-world applications. Once we embraced this idea of chaos and sensitivity, we came up with some incredible new tools. Weather forecasters, for example, now run what they call ensemble forecasts. They run dozens of simulations, each with tiny little changes, to see what the most probable outcomes are. In the stock market, it's a good reminder that you can't perfectly predict anything, but you can analyze the probabilities. And in medicine, it's helping doctors make sense of the chaotic patterns of things like a heart arrhythmia.
So let's go back to that engine-first idea for the origin of life, the metabolism-first theory. It actually led scientists to a really bold prediction. They argued that life couldn't have just popped up in some quiet, warm little pond like Darwin once imagined. No, it needed something more. It needed a constant flow of energy, a very specific kind of setup. So they put a hypothesis out there. They said life probably started in these deep-sea hydrothermal vents, places with just the right mix of chemicals and a steady flow of energy. And this is the amazing part. They predicted this before anyone had ever seen one. They said these things must exist. And then, years later, what happens? Submersibles exploring the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean found them. They found the lost city hydrothermal vents, a real place with the exact conditions they had theorized were needed to be the cradle of life. How cool is that?
So, what does this all mean? Our journey from a single late clock all the way to the cradle of life, it shows us a universe that isn't just a perfect clockwork machine, but it's not just a random mess either. It's this incredible place full of sensitivity, where the very laws that seem to dictate decay actually provide the power for complexity, for beauty, and for us. And that leaves us with one final thought. In a universe this interconnected, where the smallest actions can have massive consequences, what ripples are you starting today?